I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Ethan, the boy I'd once trusted with everything, walked through the door with Emily by his side, smiling like they were a picture-perfect couple. She leaned into him with that fake sweetness, and my heart ached with a kind of anger I hadn't felt before. This was my chance, a second life to rewrite everything. This time, I would change the ending. I had been reborn 3 months before the college entrance exams. I didn't know how or why, but I wasn't going to waste it. The first thing I did, I changed my college preferences. Last time, I had, foolishly, followed Ethan's path, going to the same university as him to stay close, to keep my dreams tethered to his. But not anymore. This time, I applied to University A, and I wasn't looking back. Claire, are you sure about this? My teacher's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. She looked concerned, her brow furrowed as she eyed me carefully. Didn't you always say you wanted to go to University B? The one Ethan's going to? I didn't flinch. The name Ethan used to bring a rush of warmth, but now it was just a bitter reminder of everything I had endured. I don't think that way anymore, I said, my voice steady. University A suits me better. I don't need to follow him anymore. That was the truth, wasn't it? In my last life, I had let Ethan's presence overshadow my own. I had always believed I wasn't worthy of him. His family was rich. He was a model student, perfect in every way. And I was the daughter of his father's old comrade, someone who had been taken in by his family out of loyalty. I had been grateful, always knowing my place, but not anymore. The day the accusation came was still so clear in my mind. I had never forgotten it, the sting of betrayal, the coldness in Ethan's eyes. It was the moment my life had been shattered. The watch, Emily's precious watch. They said I had stolen it, and Ethan, the boy I had once loved, stood by and let it happen. He didn't even hesitate. Claire, he had said, his voice low and accusing, you're poor, and that's why you're a thief. I had never stolen anything in my life, but they didn't care. Not when it meant they could have their perfect story. Not when it meant they could be together, free from the mess I was. The memory hit me like a wave, and I felt my fists tighten at my sides. But this time, I would not let it destroy me. That night, as I sat in my room, I could hear Ethan and Emily talking downstairs. It was supposed to be my family's house, but I had never felt less at home. The warm meals I had prepared, the years of loyalty to his family, it all meant nothing now. Nothing at all. I had been foolish, so foolish. I had let him lock me in that room the night before the exams, just because Emily couldn't handle the gossip. It wasn't about love, it was about control, and I had given him that power. Until now, the next morning, I took a deep breath and gathered my things. This time, I would not back down. I would leave the house behind. I would leave Ethan behind. My only goal was to make sure I didn't fail the exams. I wouldn't let them take that from me again. Not after everything. As I packed my bags, I thought about the past, the betrayal, the lies, the way my world had crumbled after that one night. The door had been locked. My cries had gone unanswered. The pain of it all had been too much. I had been broken by the people I thought I could trust the most. But now, I was no longer that fragile girl. I had learned to fight, and I would fight now. With the exams only a few months away, I needed to be focused. This time, I wasn't going to fail. This time, I wasn't going to let anyone stand in my way. That evening, Ethan came home, as expected, with Emily trailing behind him. She looked so innocent, so sweet, as if she hadn't been part of the betrayal. I could already feel my heart tightening with the old rage I thought I had buried. Claire, she called, her voice dripping with sweetness. Ethan brought me over for dinner again. Is that okay? I forced a smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. Of course, I said, my voice flat. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore. The meal was awkward. I tried to ignore them, but the tension in the air was palpable. Emily was playing the part of the innocent victim, her eyes wide with fox concern as she asked Ethan about his studies. And Ethan, he sat there, acting like everything was fine, like I wasn't a part of his life anymore. I didn't let it show, but I saw it, every little thing that reminded me of my previous life. The way Ethan smiled at Emily, the way she laughed at everything he said. It was all the same. Everything was the same. And then, the moment came. Emily suddenly started crying, claiming she was allergic to peanuts. I could barely suppress the urge to roll my eyes. She was playing her part so perfectly. Claire, Ethan said, his voice filled with frustration. Why did you have to do this? You know Emily's family is struggling. I'm just trying to help. Help? I had been the one helping. I had been the one cooking, cleaning, studying. But now I was invisible. It's fine, I said, standing up. I'm going to bed. But as I walked to my room, I realized something. I wasn't going to let this slide. Not anymore. Not when I had the chance to change everything. Ethan and Emily might have thought they had won, but I had been given a second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. I began packing my things. I had already made up my mind. Once the exams were over, I would leave. I would take my life back. And this time, I wouldn't look back. The following week felt like a blur. Ethan kept coming over with Emily, pretending that nothing had changed, but I could see it. I could feel the way the atmosphere shifted every time they walked through the door. Their silent pact as a couple, their secret world that I no longer belonged to. Emily would smile at me like we were still friends, her eyes glinting with that fake innocence. And Ethan, he barely even looked at me anymore. Not the way he used to, not with the same care. I had to remind myself constantly, I was no longer part of their world. This wasn't my fight anymore. I had bigger things to focus on. But every time Emily walked into the room, every time she wrapped herself around Ethan's arm, I could feel the rage building up inside me. I had been betrayed by both of them, betrayed and discarded without a second thought. It was time for me to step into my power. That weekend, as usual, Ethan stayed on campus, tutoring Emily. The moment he left, I took my thick stack of practice exams and headed straight for the library. The weight of my new resolve pressed down on me with every step. This was my future. It wasn't about Ethan or Emily or even his family. It was about me and the life I was about to build for myself. I would take control of my future. No more distractions. No more waiting for things to happen. I would make it happen. I couldn't afford to fail again. The memory of the college entrance exams in my previous life, how they had all but destroyed me, was still too fresh. Ethan and Emily's betrayal had shattered my mental state, and I had ended up scoring far below my usual capability. But now I had the power to change that. I wasn't going to repeat my past mistakes. I wasn't going to let them dictate my future. As I sat in the library, surrounded by books and practice papers, the door opened behind me. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. Ethan's shadow fell over my desk, and I felt his presence. Before I heard his voice, Claire, you know it's not too late, he said, his tone hesitant. We could still. I snapped my book shut and looked at him, cutting him off before he could say more. I don't need your help anymore, Ethan. And I don't need you coming here with your guilt and your pity. If you think you can just come back into my life like nothing happened, you're wrong. His face faltered, the guilt flashing in his eyes. He hesitated, and for a brief moment, I thought he might apologize. But no, instead, he cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. I'm just trying to make things right, he said softly. You don't have to do this alone. Alone? I laughed, bitterly, standing up. I've been alone my whole life, Ethan. Even when you were here, I was alone. You and Emily. I cut myself off, swallowing back the bitterness. I'm done. He opened his mouth to protest, but I didn't give him the chance. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, still trying to hold on to something that no longer existed. For the first time, I felt no sadness as I walked out of the library, just resolve. That night, I returned to the villa, my mind clear. I had already packed most of my things, kept only what I needed for the exams. I was almost done. My old apartment was waiting for me, and as soon as the exams were over, I would leave and never look back. But then, I saw something that made my chest tighten. The engagement banquet plans, the invitation that had been left on the table untouched. In my previous life, I had followed the path laid out for me, tried to fulfill the promises made by our families, tried to pretend that my feelings didn't matter. But this time, the engagement wasn't going to happen. Not if I could help it. I picked up the invitation, my fingers shaking slightly. I didn't want to go through with this. It was too much. Ethan, his family, their expectations, they all felt suffocating. I wasn't a puppet, and I wasn't going to be married to someone I didn't love, someone who couldn't even see me for who I truly was. I thought about the night I had been locked in that room, the pain and despair that had shattered my self-worth. But now, I was stronger. I had a chance to change everything, to break free. The next day, I left early for school. Olivia had insisted on driving me, but today I wasn't going to let her fuss over me. As I sat in the car, staring out the window, I felt a strange sense of finality. I had made my decision. The banquet would be canceled, and I would move on with my life. When I arrived at school, the usual hustle and bustle greeted me, but my mind was elsewhere. I wasn't thinking about the exams. I wasn't thinking about anything but how to get out of this engagement, and I wasn't going to let Ethan or Emily stop me. That afternoon, as I walked through the campus, I saw Ethan standing by the entrance, talking to Emily. They looked like a picture-perfect couple. It was the image I had once longed for, yet now it filled me with nothing but frustration. I could feel the old anger building, but I held it back. I wasn't going to let them have any more of my energy. I turned away from them, walking into the building without a second glance. I wasn't going to play their game anymore. Not now, not ever. I had my own path to follow, and I wasn't going to let them interfere with that. But as I sat in my classroom, preparing for the mock exam, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I glanced up from my notes and saw Ethan in the hallway, watching me through the window. His gaze was intense, filled with something I couldn't quite place. Regret, maybe. But I didn't care. I was done with him. The next few days were a blur. Ethan tried to talk to me again, tried to apologize, but I ignored him. I didn't need his apologies. I needed freedom. I needed to get out of this cage I had been living in. And when the day of the exams arrived, I was ready. Ready to prove everyone wrong. Ready to take back what was mine. The morning of the exams arrived, and it felt different this time. Last time, the weight of betrayal had crushed me, paralyzed me. But now, I was standing tall, focused. The paper in front of me felt like my opportunity for a fresh start. An exam, yes, but more than that, it was my chance to take control, to show myself that I could rise above the wreckage of my past. I took a deep breath as I walked into the exam hall. The atmosphere was tense, filled with the hum of nervous energy. Students were gathered in small groups, whispering, trying to calm their nerves. I scanned the room, looking for familiar faces, but my eyes stopped when they landed on Ethan, standing by the entrance with Emily beside him. Her head rested against his shoulder, her soft laugh echoing across the room. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, but it was no longer the gut-wrenching pain it used to be. It was something else now, something colder. I didn't belong in that world anymore. I had no place there. They didn't deserve my attention. I took my seat at the desk, opening my exam booklet and diving straight in. The words on the page became my focus, drowning out everything else. I could feel Ethan's eyes on me, but I didn't look up. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of knowing how much he still affected me. Instead, I focused on the questions in front of me, writing furiously as if my future depended on every word I put down. It wasn't just the exam that was on the line, it was everything. My freedom, my chance to build a life outside of this chaos. I wasn't going to let anyone stand in my way. Not Ethan, not Emily, not anyone. The hours passed quickly, and when the exam finally ended, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight that had been pressing down on me for so long had lifted, even if just for a moment. I had done my best. That was all I could ask for. But as I walked out of the hall, the feeling of being watched lingered. Ethan was standing by the doors, waiting for me. I wanted to ignore him. I wanted to keep walking, keep moving forward without looking back. But the ache in my chest wouldn't let me. Despite everything, he still had a hold on me. Claire, he called out, his voice softer than usual. Can we talk? I froze, my heart thumping in my chest. I had imagined this moment so many times, but now that it was real, I wasn't sure what to say. The anger I had been suppressing for so long flared up again, and I clenched my fists at my sides. I'm done talking, Ethan, I said, my voice steady. You've already made your choices. Don't act like this is about me now. His expression faltered, guilt flashing across his face. But it wasn't enough, not anymore. I never meant to hurt you, he said softly. You know that, right? I laughed. The sound bitter. Do I? You let Emily accuse me of stealing her watch. You locked me in a room the night before the exams, and you've been stringing me along while you make a life with her. You've hurt me more than you could ever understand. He reached out, his hand trembling. Claire, please. I stepped back, shaking my head. No, Ethan, you don't get to do this. Not now. And then, Without another word, I turned and walked away. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it was necessary. I couldn't keep pretending that I still needed him, that I still wanted him in my life. I had to move on. As I made my way home, the weight of the decision settled over me. The engagement, the plans for a future that had never been mine to begin with. I wasn't going to wait for Ethan to choose me. I wasn't going to spend my life in the shadows of his love for Emily. I had my own path now. When I reached my old apartment, I took a deep breath and set my things down. I had made it. The exams were over, and now I was free. Free from the constant torment of being second place. Free from Ethan's pity and Emily's manipulations. It felt like a small victory, but it was enough for me to keep going. But then, just as I was about to sit down, I saw the message. A text from Olivia. Claire, we need to talk about the engagement banquet. Please come home. It's time we decided what to do. My heart sank. I had known this conversation was coming, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure if I was ready. I stood up, pacing the room. Ethan had already made his choice, and so had I. But Olivia had been my guardian, my second mother. I owed her everything, but the thought of returning to that life of being tethered to a family that had no idea what I had endured made my stomach churn. I typed a quick response, my fingers trembling. I'll be there soon. We need to talk. As I arrived back at the villa, I could feel the tension in the air. Olivia and Mr. Johnson were sitting in the living room, their faces drawn with concern. They knew, deep down, that something had changed. I could feel it in the way they looked at me. Olivia stood up as I entered. Claire, she said softly, her voice filled with a mixture of worry and love. I know you've been through a lot, and I understand you're upset, but you have to understand, Ethan's family has always been there for you. Your parents, your father saved Mr. Johnson's life. This engagement means something. It's a bond between our families. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. That bond is broken, Olivia. I'm not going through with it. I can't be forced into a future that I didn't choose. Olivia's face softened, but I could see the struggle in her eyes. But, Claire, you're part of this family. Ethan has always been there for you. Don't you think you owe him a chance? I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. But I had to stand my ground. I owe myself more, I said firmly. I'm canceling the banquet. I can't do this anymore. Olivia looked at Mr. Johnson, her eyes filled with silent pleading. He sighed, rubbing his temples. I think, she's right, he said finally, his voice heavy with resignation. We can't force her into this. If she doesn't want it, then it's over. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling the last remnants of the old life fall away. I wasn't going to be part of a family that only saw me as an obligation. I wasn't going to let Ethan or Emily define who I was anymore. And as I walked out of the villa, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't known in years. The world was open to me now. I didn't need them. I had myself, and that was enough. The days after the engagement was officially called off were a whirlwind. My life had shifted, so drastically, so quickly, but for the first time in what felt like forever, I was in control. I wasn't bound to Ethan's expectations or the suffocating obligations that came with being part of his family. I wasn't the girl who had waited for a love that was never hers. I was Claire, and I was building a future on my own terms, but even though I had made the decision to leave Ethan behind, the weight of it lingered. I could still feel his presence haunting me. He hadn't given up yet. Every time I turned around, there he was, trying to apologize, trying to explain himself. But there was nothing to explain anymore. The truth was simple. He had chosen Emily, and he had betrayed me in the worst possible way. It was the night before the exams, and I had locked myself in my room, studying as if my life depended on it. I had no time to dwell on the past. Not now. But just as I was finishing my last review session, I heard a knock at the door. Claire, Ethan's voice was soft, hesitant. Can we talk? I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that escaped me. We've talked enough, Ethan, I said, my voice cold. I'm done. I could hear the pain in his voice as he spoke again. Please, just hear me out. I know you're angry, but I never meant to hurt you. You have to know that. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath to calm the fury that was building inside me. Ethan had spent so many years making me believe that I was the problem, that I was too sensitive, too demanding, that if only I had been better, he would have loved me. But it was all a lie. "You never meant to hurt me?" I said, the words slicing through the silence. "You locked me in a room the night before the exams, Ethan. You let Emily accuse me of stealing. You've been making excuses for her for months while I stood by, doing everything I could to help you." He was silent for a moment. "Claire, I didn't know she would go that far." I stood up, walking towards the door. "That's the problem, Ethan. You never knew. You were too busy making excuses for her, too busy trying to protect her. And in the process, you destroyed me." He didn't answer. And in that silence, I realized something that cut deeper than anything he could say. He didn't deserve me, and I didn't need him. I had spent my whole life believing that I wasn't enough, but now I knew the truth. Ethan wasn't enough for me. I opened the door, and there he stood, looking lost, broken, as if he had no idea how to fix everything he had broken. I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't feel anything anymore. I stepped aside, allowing him to leave, but as I closed the door behind him, I felt a weight lift from my chest. The next day, the exams began, and I was ready. This time, I wasn't just writing to pass. I was writing to prove to myself that I could rise above everything they had put me through. Ethan, Emily, even the expectations of his family, I was no longer bound by any of it. I was going to make my own path. The exams felt different. There was no lingering fear, no anxiety about how I would perform. I was calm. I knew I had studied hard, prepared well. I wasn't doing this for anyone but myself. When the final bell rang, signaling the end of the last exam, I stood up and felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. I had done it, and no matter the outcome, I knew I was ready for whatever came next. But when I stepped out of the exam hall, there he was again. Ethan. His face was etched with regret, his eyes pleading. It was like he couldn't stay away. "Claire," he said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. I know I messed up. I should have never let you go through that." I shook my head, my heart hardening. "You don't get to fix this, Ethan. You had your chance." But even as I said the words, I knew there was a part of me that still cared. A part of me that had hoped he would come back, that he would choose me. But it wasn't enough anymore. It would never be enough. "I'm leaving," I said quietly, my voice steady. "I'm not coming back." He reached out, but I stepped back, my eyes locking with his. "Goodbye, Ethan." I turned and walked away, feeling the weight of his gaze on me. But this time, I didn't look back. I could end single quotes T.as I made my way back to the apartment. The exhaustion hit me like a wave. But it wasn't just physical exhaustion. It was mental. The last few months had been a battle against Ethan's betrayal, against Emily's manipulations, and against my own doubts. But now, as I walked through the door of my new apartment, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. I was free. The life I had fought for was mine to build. The next few days were a blur. I studied for the exams, prepared for what was coming next, and made sure everything in my new life was ready. But there was always that nagging feeling that I hadn't completely let go of Ethan. It was hard, but I knew it was necessary. And then, on the day the results were announced, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. My name at the top of the list. I had done it. I had ranked first in the entire grade. It was everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed. And as I held the paper in my hands, I realized something else. This victory wasn't just for me. It was for everything I had been through, the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak. I had survived it all, and now I was standing at the top. But the story didn't end there. The gossip spread quickly. The whispers about Emily's downfall, the truth of her manipulations. She had tried to frame me to ruin my future, but in the end, it was her own lies that had caught up to her. I couldn't help but smile, a bitter satisfaction filling my chest. It was over. The tables had turned, and in the end, I had won. The days after the exam results were announced were a blur of congratulations, messages of admiration, and endless rumors. My phone rang nonstop. But all I could do was stare at the paper in my hands, the one that confirmed everything I had fought for. Top of the class, University A. Everything I had worked for was finally within my reach. But amidst the praise, I couldn't shake the thought that there was more to this victory than the grades on a sheet of paper. It wasn't just about success, it was about reclaiming my life, my autonomy, and the future I had always dreamed of. A future that didn't include Ethan or Emily. As the days passed, I realized something important. The more I succeeded, the more Ethan and Emily tried to drag me back into their world. They had never expected me to rise above them. They had always believed I would be a footnote in their perfect love story, a small chapter they could rewrite or erase when it suited them. But I wasn't going to let that happen anymore. I wasn't going to be their villain, their victim, or their afterthought. That evening, as I returned to my apartment, I received another text from Olivia. It was brief, but it sent a chill through my spine. "Claire, please come home. We need to talk. It's about Ethan." My heart skipped a beat. I had been avoiding their calls, avoiding any kind of confrontation with Ethan's family. I couldn't bear the idea of facing them again, of pretending like everything was fine when nothing ever would be. But Olivia had always been there for me, and I owed her the truth. It was time to finally end this chapter for good. When I arrived at the villa, Olivia and Mr. Johnson were waiting for me in the living room. Their faces were full of concern, and for a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. They had always treated me like their own, but I had chosen to walk away from the life they had given me. I had taken their love for granted, believing it was something I could keep forever, without realizing that I needed to take control of my own life. "Claire," Olivia said softly as I sat down, "Ethan has been asking about you. He's been a mess. He doesn't understand why you've cut him off, and he wants to make it right." I looked at her, my chest tightening. "I don't think there's anything left to make right, Olivia. I'm done with him. I've already made my choice." Mr. Johnson sighed, his voice heavy with the weight of old promises. "We know you've been through a lot, Claire, and we've tried to help you. But this isn't just about you and Ethan. It's about the future of both families. We've invested a lot in this engagement, and we don't want to see it fall apart." I took a deep breath, the words threatening to spill out. "I can't do it anymore. I can't pretend that everything's fine when it's not. Ethan has made his choice, and so have I." Olivia's eyes softened with understanding. "I get it, Claire, but can't you at least talk to him? Maybe hear him out? He's not the same person he was before. He's changed." I shook my head, my voice firm. "No, Olivia, he hasn't changed. He's the same person who locked me in that room, the same person who let Emily accuse me of stealing, the same person who pretended like I wasn't worth his time. I can't go back to that." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the unspoken understanding that my decision was final. Olivia didn't argue. She knew, deep down, that I was right. It was over, and I wasn't going to be anyone's second choice anymore. I stood up, my resolve hardening. "I'm leaving. I'm going to focus on my future, on building the life I want, and I'm not coming back here. I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I can't stay." Mr. Johnson stood as well, his face a mixture of disappointment and acceptance. "I understand, Claire, but know that you'll always have a place here. You'll always be family to us." I smiled faintly, the weight of my decision settling over me. "Thank you, but I have to do this on my own." With one last look, I turned and walked out, leaving the past behind. As I stepped into the crisp night air, I felt a strange sense of freedom. The weight of the world, the expectations, the guilt, the ties that had bound me to Ethan's family had lifted. I was free. The next few days were a whirlwind of final preparations. My new life was taking shape, and every step felt like a small victory. I wasn't just passing the exams, I was changing the trajectory of my entire future. The work was hard, but every moment of it was mine. No one else had a say in it. And then, on the evening of the fireworks, everything came to a head. I hadn't expected to see Ethan again, but there he was, standing at the riverbank looking lost. His face was pale, his eyes hollow, as if he had been waiting for me. He looked like someone who had given up on everything, including himself. "Claire," he said, his voice thick with regret. "I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. And I didn't realize how much it affected you until it was too late." I stopped in my tracks, looking at him for a moment. He was still the same, still trying to fix things in the way he thought would make everything okay. But it wasn't okay, and it never would be. "You can't fix this, Ethan," I said softly, my voice steady. "You can't erase what's been done. You can't erase the way you made me feel like I didn't matter." He took a step toward me, his eyes pleading. "Please, Claire, I never meant to hurt you. I was just too stupid to see what I had until it was gone." I could see the sincerity in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. "Not anymore. I'm not the girl you left behind," I said, my voice cold but strong. "I've moved on, and it's time you do the same." His face crumpled with disappointment, but he nodded slowly, as if he finally understood. I'll let you go, Claire. I'll let you live your life, but just know, I'll always care about you. I turned away without another word. It wasn't that I didn't care, but I had given him enough chances. This time, I wasn't going to let him break me again. As I walked away, my heart felt lighter than it had in years. I had made it. I had risen above everything. And now, the future was mine to shape. No more chains, no more lies, just me, and the life I was about to build. Jason, who had quietly observed everything from a distance, stepped up beside me, offering a small smile. So, what now? I looked at him, my heart suddenly lighter. Now, I live for myself. The rest can wait. And as the fireworks lit up the sky above us, I realized something else. This was only the beginning. The road ahead was long, but I was finally ready to walk it alone. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid.